Talking?
I think you are. We hear
Oh,
you. Did you not mean to
yeah.
talk?
I didn't realize I was unmuted. I'm
You
not that
are.
important. Okay, well, hi.
Josh, you are very important. Everyone that's here is important. My guess is that most of the people that are here are either running Hard Rock or they are obsessed enough with Hard Rock that they just want to gather up as much information as possible. So I'm going to make sure we're
Yes.
recording. I see that I'm going to mute you now, Josh. No offense. All right. So my name is Chris Twiggs. Hey, everyone. My name is Chris Twiggs, and I am one of the co hosts of the Hard Talk podcast. If you are not listening to the Hard Talk podcast, please listen to the Hard Talk podcast. We have a lot of fun. And what we do is the same thing we're doing here tonight is we talk all about hard rock. And tonight we are doing our panel on physically preparing for hard rock. And I dare say we might go a little bit beyond the physical. We might talk a little bit about the emotional and the spiritual, maybe even the financial. I don't know, but we may go beyond just the physical. But we have some amazing panelists here to answer the questions that people submitted. We did have several questions that were submitted ahead of time. We'll make sure we get to all of those. If you have a question and you did not ask it ahead of time, or if something just occurs to you now while we're doing this panel, please just type that question into the chat. I'll be monitoring that and making sure that we get an answer to your question. And I am going to just go through and ask our panelists to introduce themselves. And for no better reason, I'm just going to go with the order in which they showed up on my screen. And the first one of those wonderful people is Jeff Browning. Jeff, welcome, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Chris. My name's Jeff Browning, and I've been involved with Hard Rock since 2007. Was my first Hard Rock. I've done 7 Hard Rocks and multiple Western States Hard Rock doubles. And what else can I say? I've won at one time in 2018, and have been, up towards the front most years. And I come every year and volunteer, and I hang out on the course, and I help mark the course last few years. I've been on the live feed, so I'm very familiar with this course. I've run every section multiple times in both directions. So I'm stoked to be here. Love Hard Rock. It's my
Awesome.
favorite.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Next, we have Hannah Allgood. Hannah is joining us from a long way away, not where she normally is.
That's right, you guys. I am in Germany currently, so it's 1 a.m., but it's worth it to be here with all of you guys. If you guys don't know me, my name is Hannah Allgood. I am one of the ones that has not run Hard Rock, but I have physically prepared lots of people actually that have ran Hard Rock. So I am a runner for Adidas Terrex, and I am also an ultra running coach within Free Trail. And then I'm a physical therapist. So I spend a lot of time working with runners, teaching them how to run safely, teaching them how to actually prepare their bodies. But yeah, so I'm here more on the physical side. And then, yeah, the goal is to eventually have a litany of hard rock finishes like Jeff and Anna, but I have not gotten there yet. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're delighted that you're here. So Hannah's coming to us from the near future, 1 a.m. Uh, in in Europe, but from the distant future all the way to tomorrow afternoon, Anna Frost.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I have been at Hard Rock. My first one that I came to see was in 2014, when I fell in love with the course and the people and just the idea of Hard Rock more than anything. I actually never wanted to do 100 miles because that seems like silly. And unfortunately, Hard Rock is 100 miles. So I had to do 100 miles. But if I feel like, and like Jeff said, if you're going to do any 100-mile race, it should be that one because it is absolutely stunning. It's a perfect loop, which is really cool. You know, you get to travel around a big mountain. And I've raced it 3 times. And after my third one, I definitely bowed out and said, "Thank you very much, Hard Rock. I'm done." I remember running with Darcy Pique at about 60 miles. And I said to her, "This is silly, Darcy." And she said, "What do you mean? This is wonderful. I love it." And I said, "It's silly. We've still got another 40 miles to go. I think I'm done." And she said, "What are you doing here? Why are you doing 100-mile races?" So it's a big commitment, being 100 miles. But if you're going to do it at Hardrock,
Absolutely. So we have
or to
three
plan to do Hardrock.
planned hard. So we have three wonderful coaches that are here to answer our questions. Again, if you come up with questions that you did not submit to us ahead of time, please just type them in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to those. And I am going to dive in on the questions that we have here. And I'm going to start with Anna, just because this question is about someone coming from overseas. It says, "I'm coming from overseas. We'll be in the San Juans for about 2 weeks beforehand. What sections would you recommend scouting from a scenic, fun, and prep perspective?"
Yeah, so there's that big question of the altitude training, which is obviously a huge thing from when you're not living in Silverton or up high in the mountains. You start at 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet and then never go below that ever again. So, you really have to be prepared when you come to Silverton, to the San Juans, to prepare slowly for that altitude, because you will definitely get a good hit of it right at the beginning. So the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a bunch of fatigue because you go too hard at the start of your 2 weeks there while you're acclimatizing to the altitude. But the beauty of Hardrock is that it's all wonderful. So no matter where you go on the course, you're going to have a wonderful day. But there's so many accessible things that can be just a day run, like there's the Island Lake Loop, there's Handies, which is right there, and up and down. Little Giant is right there. You can get up Bear Creek, which is right there. So being based in Silverton, if you're there for the 2 weeks, you won't be short of training to do. But I would definitely, say to people, like, be calm, don't go crazy in those weeks, because you'll just end up lower than where you were before.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I add something?
Oh, of course. I'd be surprised if you
So,
didn't, Jeff.
well, one place I always like to scout every year when I come is to go to Uray, go up Campbird Road. You can drive most of the way up and
Mhm.
ditch your car, and then hike up the road, and then um, go see Kroger's Canteen and Virginia's Pass, because that snow fields change every season. So they're always different, and it's kind of nice to go scout it. I do it as a shorter, like, hike up, jog hike down, like a week out, um, just to go see what it looks like. So you kind of know what the conditions are and what the route looks like, because it changes every year. Some years it's been dry, and some years it's been tons of snow. And that way you can at least kind of scout that section, so you kind of know what to expect when you come through that aid station. Plus, it's one of the coolest aid stations on the course. It's the highest point, like 13.1. I've worked that aid station one year in 2017, and it's a pretty special spot. And I have an ode to it right here behind me. Uh, it's me arriving into Virginia the year I won, when Rock Horton was the aid station captain, and he was shaking my hand as I entered. Joe Grant took the photo, and it's a beautiful platform to go up to and check out. And I recommend kind of going off the other side towards Telluride a little bit, maybe a half a mile, so you can see that little bit of a traverse. It's kind of crazy and, like, got a lot of scree in it. So just having that done and just seen before you get there can really help you on race day if it's your first time, especially.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
probably to add to that as well,
Yeah.
Chris, on that note, Jeff, also going up to Grant Swamp and having a look over the other side there, because
Yes.
that one's a big scree bomb, and that changes from big scree, little scree. There's some nice shoots, some horrible shoots, and it's up to you if you want to go down it or if you want to save that for race day. But to have a good look at where you do get up to Grand Swamp and then go along the ridge a little bit before you drop down is good.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, in terms of the area at Virginius, it changes a lot just in the last couple of days prior to the run. So getting up there and seeing the snow field, seeing what you're going to be going this year, what you'll be coming down, right? You'll come up from the Telluride side, what you're going to be coming down, whether you're going to be coming down scree or if you're going to be coming down snow. That's definitely scouting that out is fantastic. And like you said, it's a short hike from the Uray side. Hannah, for all of our panelists, I will say I'm going to ask the questions. I don't necessarily claim to understand all the questions, and we have one, Hannah, that was specifically asked for you. So I'm sure, I don't know if this is in code, but you'll understand. It says, for Hannah, how many pounds of rocks, if any, should we be carrying during training, and what hardness of rocks should they be?
Yes, I know who sent this message in, but yeah, so no rocks, don't carry any rocks. But I would say only because you could find lots of rocks on Hardrock. You got a rock to sleep on, you got some rocks in your shoes, you got rocks you got to get over, but no, I would say you don't need any rocks. Thankfully, you got enough just with it being hard rock. But yeah, but you do need to do strength training. So I would say that's where you
Good segue. I love that segue.
yeah,
Thank you.
if you don't if you don't have weights, you can use rocks for your weight training. But yeah, no rocks in the pack for actual race day. We don't need any extra weight on our bodies.
Gotcha. Now, since you mentioned strength training, are there like one or two things that you think people might not already be doing, but that you would suggest they add into their routine for strength training for hard rock?
Yeah, I think it's well known right now, like what people should do for strength. I think some of my favorite things are Bulgarian split squats, step ups, things of that nature, focusing on single leg strength. But I would say my biggest thing to add with them is working on the tempoing of how you're doing things. So taking it really, really slow down, maybe holding at the bottom for an isometric, slow back up. So instead of having kind of maybe your normal reps, is changing how much you're doing that, especially if you live at a level where you can't get as much vertical training, especially the downhill, to really season your quads a little bit more. And that's one way that you can really work on your quad durability and strength is, again, instead of kind of just going up and down through movements, you can add any single leg jumping or, again, doing something that's like slow movement. That being said, kind of to even echo what Anna said, these are things you want to start with slowly. If you've never done anything like that and you start to do that, it's going to take some time. But I think it's really great for our people that can't get a ton of eccentric downhill training to add in more specifically, and working again on that slow controlled movement is what's going to be kind of your best friend versus just quickly going through up and down movements. Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So while we're talking about that, Jeff, are there any secret workouts or any little tips, things that you think most people don't do, but you would always want to do in preparation for hard rock?
Well, I guess it just really depends on where you live and what kind of terrain you have accessible to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're mountain terrain, go get in the mountains and do steep uphills, some steep downhills, stuff that's really going to put an eccentric load on the quads, or really you kind of have to be up on your toes at times when you're climbing with poles, if you're going to use poles, which I highly recommend at Hard Rock. There's just so much climbing and a lot of steep stuff. Now, I think for flatter running, I agree with Hannah on what she mentioned. There's one other kind of exercise I recommend for my flatlanders who are trying to get ready for a big mountain race, and that's what we call depth jumps. So you're stepping down off a 12 to 18 inch box, and you're trying to stick the landing. So normally a depth jump is to go down on one foot and then then put both feet on the ground and then do a squat jump and then get back up on the box and do it again and do it on the other leg. But we want it with depth jumps, when it comes to eccentric load, we want to kind of stick the landing on one foot, then put your other foot down, do the squat jump, and then get back up on the box. So that's one that we kind of recommend, 3 by 10 reps or something like that, a couple times a week. Another one I like is explosive walking lunges, just holding like light dumbbells, kind of leaning forward, almost like you're pulling up your socks on the front leg as you lunge forward. And so you're kind of leaning forward over your front leg. And then you're just doing like 10 like kind of explosive walking lunges. across and then stopping for 10 to 20 seconds, turn around and walk back, maybe do 6 by 10 steps. Those two moves alone are really good for one. The explosive walking lunges are really good for power hiking, and giving you power. And then the depth jumps are good for eccentric load on the quads because that's really hard to mimic in the flats, even on treadmill, because most treadmills don't go over, -3 to -6. And so I like those because it helps with coordination as well.
Neat. So this is a good time to tell everybody this is being recorded. This will go out onto the Hardrock YouTube channel. So if you didn't take notes quickly enough, you can go back and you can rewatch this. I will be doing that because I'm doing Hardrock this year, and I know strength training is a real weakness for me and something I need to up my game on. So just to complete the circuit, Anna, is there a particular workout or something you think people might not already be doing to prepare for Hardrock that you think they should do?
Well, I think both Jeff and Hannah have given us some great gems there that we should all be doing. I think a thing that we all don't do because it's an easy one to put to the side is core strength, and single-sided core strength as well. Because when you're running or walking or hobbling or crawling on technical terrain, as Hardrock is, it's not just your feet and your ankles and your legs that have got to hold you up. It's your back, it's your shoulders, it's mainly your core that has to be able to hold your body up and give you good form and balance you when you start getting really wobbly. The core strength doesn't need to be like a 30-minute, a 60-minute session. It can be a little bit and often. So whether that's like you get out of your bed in the morning and you drop down and you do 10 sit-ups, or if you're just warming up in the gym for your strength stuff and you do 3 or 4 minutes of some core, you can just add it in daily, little bits and pieces everywhere. Twisting things is really good, single side. But anything really that's going to support your back and your your legs when those parts start falling apart.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, again, I don't know who has asked these particular questions, but some of them are very specific. So for Jeff, what is the optimal thickness of peanut butter to spread on the bread throughout training for Hardrock?
It doesn't matter if it's crunchy or creamy or watered down. You just need to make sure that you spread the peanut butter over the whole piece of toast. So for anyone who doesn't know that backstory, this is one that Joe Grant reminded me of that Rock Horton, who's on the photo behind me, gave us a long time ago when we first did our first Hard Rocks. And I passed it along to Courtney DeWalter when we were standing on the start line, her first Hard Rock. And she asked me, what's a veteran's advice for Hard Rock? And I said, imagine your race is an artisan piece of sourdough toast, and your effort is one dab of peanut butter on your knife, and you need to spread that effort over the whole piece of toast. Make sure you don't lay it on too thick early, or you're going to have dry toast at the end. You don't want dry toast. So spread it evenly over the whole race. It is a big race. It's probably one of the most important races to not go out too hard in, and respect how big this course is. You have 13 major climbs. You go over 13,000 feet 7 times. You need to respect those climbs and how big this race is. I spread the peanut butter in 07 way too thick in the first 40 miles, chasing Scott Jurek and Carl Meltzer, and I blew up. It's the worst blow up I've ever had in a 100-miler. And it really made me race a certain way after 07 from that point forward, which, most people would know if you followed my career. I kind of start easy and come on strong at the end. And Hardrock's what taught me that. I ended up sleeping 45 minutes at Chapman right before dawn, and it's still my slowest 100 to date out of 5,500s. So, don't spread the peanut butter too thick at the beginning. You don't want dry toast.
That's fantastic advice, and that's definitely an analogy that I remember the first time you you gave us that one, and I've never forgotten it. It's fantastic. So I think we'll all be visualizing that sourdough bread and peanut butter when we show up at Hard Rock. Um, Anna, here's a great question. What mistakes do you think first time runners make most often?
Um, oh, that's a big one because 100 miles, there's so many mistakes that we all make, which are great because then we learn from them all. I would say that we get the first time we just get so nervous and we get a little bit frantic. And not just deal with the issue right there, right then. It's can be very easy to go, oh my gosh, I don't want to like slow down, so I'm not going to take that little stone out of my shoe, and that little stone in your shoe ends up being a big blister on your foot. So I think it's always remembering that it's a run, you've made it to the start line. Like Jeff said, it's a long way to go. I see it those sort of races as like a 60-mile warm up, which is ridiculous. And once you've got your warm up done at 60 miles, you can then start thinking about what you have to do for that last 40 miles. But I think, always keeping calm and just checking in with yourself, staying in contact with the race. Try not to get too deep into your podcast and thinking about whatever else is playing in your ears. Stay there, keep in contact. What's your feet doing? What's your body doing? Do I need a drink? Do I need to eat? And that needs to be on repeat so that you're dealing with every little thing that could arise before it arises.
Good advice. So along that line of thinking about these things and preparing for it, I'm wondering, Hannah, when you're dealing with your athletes that are doing hard rock, are there any mental training exercises or anything that you would have them do in terms of mental training workouts or visualization getting ready for hard rock?
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I have learned from my sports psych, especially, is I like to have my athletes, especially when we're going to do big, scary goals, is like they have them get a little notebook so that they can write their highs during training and things that they think that they've done really well in training. And that can be anywhere from more of the outcome stuff as far as like I ran this faster to I'm really proud that I did this run that didn't think I was able to do. And it's really that way when you get to the start of your race, you can open a notebook of all the amazing things that you did in training and you have all these mental cues that you can do. I think visualization, especially if you're able to either have these long climbs in your training where it's easy to think, okay, I have, this long climbing that I'm doing. Oh, I did X mountain. I did this 75-minute treadmill uphill, like having those in your back pocket so it can give you confidence. But yeah, I like to have that in a notebook. And then all of my athletes, I try to work on their just honestly your self-affirmation because there is going to be a time where you don't think you can do it, but that's when you can go back to all these moments within your training where you were stronger than you thought you could be. So you already have that mental toolbox ready to go and all of these bullet points of what you did, how you did it, and then giving you that confidence that you can get to that next level.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Um, Jeff, specifically for you, someone asks, what did your training look like when you've done the Western States Hard Rock double? What was that training like for that double? And then what did you do for recovery in between Western and Hard Rock?
Training was a lot of vert, a lot of downhill running. I mainly trained just a ton of hills.
Mhm.
And just to get ready, just because one, Western States is 24,000 feet of downhill, right? It's 18,000 feet of up, but 24,000 feet of down. So you need your quads ready to run downhill. And Hard Rock is 33,000 feet of downhill. So having your quads seasoned and ready for lots of downhill running, I think that was an important piece. So just doing a lot of vert, get ready, and then you're ready for Western States because there's plenty of hills there that you need to be ready for. So um, as far as like recovery in between, um, for me, I got on the bike right away. I was the year I got the double record, I definitely I was in an Epsom salt soak in my hotel room the night I finished Western States. I did a 15-20 minute soak in the hotel bathtub. We came prepared. My wife, of course, is brilliant in those kind of things, and she was laying like, "You need to get in the bath." And I was like, "Okay." So I did that. I immediately started walking every day right away. I did mobility work the first week every day, and then got on the bike for 3 or 4 days, 5 days, and then I was back jogging easy. Kind of transitioned over another week between the bike and running, and a little bit of hiking, and then I basically did uh, maybe a 10 or 12 mile run, like 8 or 9 days out to check my legs. Everything felt okay, and I tapered. So it's really just a controlled taper and trying to get back moving and getting your range of motion back. I did some strength training, light strength training to get range of motion back, working through full ranges of motion between mobility and strength. Other than that, showed up and felt good on race day.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Anna, as a Floridian, I appreciate anyone who has a good, healthy sense of staying away from snow as much as possible, right? And so you have this great rhythm of, oh, there's snow in Colorado. I'll be in New Zealand. Oh,
Hmm.
there's snow here. I'll be in Colorado. But we know that summer in the San Juans, there's likely to be snow up high. And someone is asked, how do you prepare for the type of snow that we might encounter during the race? And that the person shares, I live somewhere that snow doesn't stick around for long in the winter. I don't even know what I don't know about snow safety in midsummer. Do you have some summer snow tips that you can share?
Yeah, I do not understand snow at all. I'm not at all. I'm like a Bambi on ice when I go to the snow. Fortunately, at Hard Rock, they do a fantastic job at making the snow crossing safe. Since I first went there in 2014 till now, there has definitely been a lot less snow on course, if even there is any. Even on the course anymore. So take it from me that I have no idea what snow does. And yes, it was a bit cold when I crashed through it, but anywhere that it needed to be made safe, like off Kroger's, for example. There was steps chiseled out, there was a rope in place. The Kroger's crew are fantastic, so there was nothing to worry about that. I think for me, it was doing the training where you're post holing and all of a sudden you're knee deep and your shins are cut up with snow. So wearing longer socks if you're getting out in the snow, or even if it is a snowy year at Hard Rock, you might want to have long, like knee-high socks if you are crashing through snow. Um, I got absolutely freezing cold the first year that I raced. And I actually ended up picking up some thick ski gloves because I was so cold. And I probably left it too late to put on my layers. So I was already like very frozen when I finally did put on my jacket and pants. So just being aware, I guess, of like when you are going higher up into the mountains, especially if you've got a pacer and they're thinking a bit more straight than you are, to wrap up warm, especially when you're I mean, you might be working hard and so you don't feel cold, but when there's snow all around you, up high in the San Juans, it's going to be cold. But from my perspective, I was never too worried about it because I knew that Hard Rock people would have it under control.
And you can,
Fantastic. Fantastic.
I'll add something. You can always use
Yeah.
your pole handle as a self-arrest if you're sliding down a snow embankment or something. Because there is some snow on this course from time to time, and especially at Kroger's that we were talking about earlier. There's definitely some steep pitches there. They're probably like 45 degrees. So if you hit it when it's frozen at night, perhaps if it's cold at night and clear, you could get closer down to freezing at above 12 or 13,000 feet. You could get some really uh, kind of icy conditions at times. I have heard of people carrying like a plastic tent spike So, a little tint spike about this long, put it in your pack. You can use that to self-arrest if you slipped. Especially if, depends on the time of day. It can be really soft during the day when the sun's on it. And if it's north facing and has got melty during the day and then got really cold at night, it could get really, really firm and kind of slippery. So just being prepared for those kind of conditions. Take it slow if it's icy. Make sure of your steps. Use your poles, and and be ready. And another thing, I think, anybody who's a little adventurous, one thing you can do is if you go to Kroger's early, you might be able to test out your snow skills there, because there usually is a 3-pitch snow field there, or at least part of it has snow in most years. So just this year may not, because we're having a really, really dry, in the West has been really, really dry snow year. So we'll see. It probably won't be much snow on the course this year, but you can go there. I've practiced my glissading there on those snow pitches. So if you really want to get adventurous, you can try that. I always love to go to the course early and try to get some glissading in. Some people like to go on their butt. I've heard of people hitting rocks underneath and breaking their tailbone. So I tend to like to do it with my feet staggered stance, and just bend the legs and in a quarter squat and ski down. And then use your poles to self-arrest if you need it. Just stick them in the snow. But anyway, have fun out there.
It sounds
You
like
could
you're
also
definitely gonna have fun. Yeah.
you could also pick up the little micro spikes that are just on the like stretchy rubber that you can just whip onto your shoe when you get up closer to Kroger's, if that makes you feel more confident. And then you could just pick it up and Telluride and drop it back off in Uri at the next aid station. So you could just pop them in your bag if you are feeling a bit nervous about that section, and that would give you some more confidence for sure.
Good. Yeah. Good tip. Good tip. Now, Hannah, I know that you're usually in Colorado, so you definitely have you probably have a little less concern for yourself in terms of getting ready for altitude. But we mentioned it earlier. Altitude is an issue. Someone has written in that they live at sea level. They'll be in Colorado. Doesn't say they'll be in the San Juans. Let's hope it's a San Juans. It says they'll be in Colorado 18 days before Hardrock. What kind of strategy would you suggest for altitude acclimatization?
Yeah, I think the 18 days, like those 3 weeks, are gonna be kind of your best like time frame as far as like for what you can do in that time frame. Kind of as we mentioned earlier, like what Jeff was saying with seeing different parts of the course, I think it can be valuable to get up high, but not try to do too much. Ideally, I think for people that aren't able to get at altitude, is like having an altitude tent of some sort at home is going to be your best bet. The last thing you want to do is kind of get right to altitude like those 3 days before, and then by race day you're kind of cooked a little bit more. But yes, I think it's great to, and if you're in Silverton, you're going to get great altitude training. It's going to be more around the fact that you just don't want to be pushing yourself too much, kind of like I said, like Jeff and Anna said, is like you're not trying to do your hardest sessions right when you get there. You're kind of more just trying to breathe and live at that altitude, because you're just going to do the best that you can. So like I said, ideally, I think if you can invest in an altitude tent. They're not the best, and maybe your spouse doesn't love it that you're sleeping in this little tent, but it's like that's going to be kind of your best bang for your buck to prepare prior to moving over there for sure.
I have yet to meet anyone whose spouse is willing to sleep in that tent with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
will
usually
say
it's a
that.
singular tent in bed or just no tent in bed.
Well,
Yep.
can I add a
Yep.
couple of things, Chris?
Of course. Of course.
I think one would be you can do some dry sauna work or sauna work. It's a similar adaptation pathway with blood plasma. It's not exactly altitude, but you can be prepared that way. And if you're a durable athlete, before you would come to altitude or before you come to the race, make sure you're doing some good solid like uphill interval training, so you're very well trained at your high end zone 3, zone 4 type work, especially high zone 3. Usually it's pretty safe for most athletes to be in zone 3. Some if you're injury prone, zone 4 can get a little dangerous for athletes, especially older athletes. But also I think be careful coming. I want to reiterate what Hannah said. Be careful coming 3 days before. That's when everyone comes to races, is like 3 days out. And you literally, your O2 saturation level will drop 2 to 3 days in a row when you first come to altitude. So you're at your lowest on day 3. So if you show up on Wednesday, you're going to be at your lowest on Friday on the start. So you're going to feel horrible. So it's better to either come at least a week early so you can be starting to climb out of that valley, or ideally 10 to 14 days or more. So that 18 days is great, but I would come in with like, sauna training in under my belt and fully heat acclimated. So that way I have some blood plasma adaptation. If you can't do a tent, you can do like, uh, there's some places will lease them or rent them. I've had people be able to do that. I've known of other athletes over the years that have time shared them together. You get 3 or 4 athletes together and you all invest
Yeah.
in one system, and then you have to fill it out at the beginning of the season. Like I get it for this month, you get it for that month, you know. So if you do that, be careful, like so you don't lose friends, but you're both fighting for Hardrock. But I think you can use all of those things to help you get ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
adding in there as well,
please, please.
as Hannah was talking about with the tents, you can also have a face mask if you didn't want to, or if that was going to end up in a divorce having the tent. The face mask is a good option as well, and then you can sit on your stationary bike. You could stand, go on your treadmill. You could sit at work with your face mask at 14,000 feet, even higher. And they have found that, with a lot of high altitude athletes, that even doing short and sharp and hard intervals on like a bike or on your treadmill up high, like 14,000, 15,000, can really help with that adaptation, as like the sauna can help with an adaptation of you getting used to the altitude. I'd also say that a super, super important thing about going to race at high altitude is that your stomach is not going to do what it usually does.
Oh, good point.
And
Yes.
you don't know what it's going to do until you go there and see what it's going to do. And that could show up in all sorts of different manners. It could be the altitudes, it could be that all the food that you tried to eat no longer sits in your stomach and you puke it straight back up. You might find that, especially as you're going up higher, you need to stick to liquid calories because you can't chew. Chewing's really hard, swallowing's really hard, digestion's hard because you don't have any oxygen and you don't have any blood going to your stomach or even oxygen just to breathe and chew at the same time. So a huge part of that week or the weeks before, I would say, should be learning what you can eat and how you can eat. So go to the top of Handy's and sit up there and have lunch and see how that goes for you. Get used to teaching your stomach to digest at altitude, digest when you're running down or running up. But also have in your little bag of goodies a huge variety of food that you don't know if you would like or not, but you are potentially going to get to race day and eat nothing that you ever eat in
Yeah.
previous races.
Yeah. Very, very good point. I'll also share for any other for the coaches here and any other coaches as well from my experience. Don't breathe on an altitude mask and then expect you're going to sit down and edit a client's training schedules because you're not thinking as clearly during that experience as you think you are. So you might as well be drunk if you're going to be working. So on that, so sit back, breathe on the mask, or sleep in the tent and watch a movie or something like that. Something more or less mindless, or spin on a bike for sure. The question for all our panelists, and I'll start with you, Anna. Someone asks, it's all about training for the hills, up and down, or is it? Do you need speed sessions, or are there other things that are as important or more important than up and down hills for Hardrock?
Up and down hills are ideal because that's all you do out there. But the downhills are on in this direction are long and they're runnable. You have to be able to run. And so, even in a long race, if you've got a good turnover, if you've got a good cadence going with that downhill running, you are obviously going to get there much easier, more efficiently than if you're plodding down on your heels, going slowly, slow cadence. So, working on the flat, you can do your cadence focus runs where you're making sure you've got a good cadence. You can do your intervals, you can do tempos. Um, to make sure that you are able to run. Often when we do ultra training, we turn all our runs into ultra plods and we get slow. We sit down, our form goes back in our heels. So doing some tempos, doing some intervals, it doesn't have to be super long, forces us to get back up on our toes, to get our bodies standing upright, to stand up tall, and therefore have better stride length. So definitely you can be doing intervals and tempos. Fartlek sessions are great. Especially if have a time restriction with your training and you can't get out for 6 or 8 hours every day, you might have an hour. And so make that hour worth it, go for gold out there.
Awesome. Hannah, anything that you would add?
Yeah, I agree. I think with Hard Rock specifically and all races, the nice thing is the more you go up, the more you've got to go down. So you'll get a little bit both of those training, but I think the majority of your time at Hard Rock is going to be spent going uphill. But I think this still comes back to, I think we see a lot of like how fast can we, try to go really fast down these downhills. And I think that can be scary for a lot of people. And so I think that's where what Jeff talked about, even like the depth drop jumps and even those power lunges. I can't remember what he used.
Explosive walking lunges.
There we go. Explosive walking lunges. I think those are other ways to just make you confident in your foot placement, because I think that's where a lot of people get really scared with moving fast downhills is because they're scared about their foot placement. So I think those jumps can also give you confidence. But yeah, I would say I agree with Anna, and then spending as much time as you can improving your uphill fitness, and then that will again translate well into downhill because you have to go down the same amount. So
You do indeed. Jeff, what about you? Anything ups and downs, or are there other things in addition to that you would
I
recommend?
think they've kind of covered everything I would say. The only thing I would say is in this direction, I always think of Hard Rock as a series, depending on if it's clockwise or counterclockwise. In the clockwise direction that it's going this year, I always think of it as ramps and walls. So we're going up the walls, down the ramps this year. And so when it's in the other direction, you're doing the opposite. So it's really long climbs. And like Anna said, we're doing really long downhills. So you need to be able to run 6, 10 miles downhill. Like I think Campbird Road is a half marathon downhill. So
Yeah.
there's not a lot, there's some steep sections, but there's a lot of runnable downhills in this direction and a lot of very, very steep uphills. So you're going up, like I said, you're going up the walls. So being ready to, even if you have a little tiny hill somewhere that's really steep, like doing repeats on it. So you're used to going downhill steep, but for those little steep sections in this direction, but also used to just grinding uphill steep at a steep, if you have an incline trainer, put that thing at 20%, 18%, 25%, 35, 40% at times, just to get what it's like to grind uphill for miles at steep vert, because you'll kind of be on your toes. And we're not used to that. We're used to power hiking up stuff where we're really more in a dorsiflexion and flexing our ankles. Whereas there's times it's so steep that you're on your toes and your calves will be burning.
Yeah, absolutely. There are times when everything's going to be. My earlobes have hurt doing Hard Rock. So, um, so this is something I have a hard time with. And so I don't know that I have a good answer for this myself because I live where it's very flat. But someone would love to know, how much vert should I be getting between now and Hard Rock? And Jeff, I'll start with you. How much vert would you say between now? Is there a number that they should be looking for? Here we are mid-March. So April, May, June, we are just shy of 4 months from Hard Rock. How much vert should they be looking at?
I would look at May and June as your big peak vert week months. I like to look at it on a per week basis. So if you live in a mountainous location, you should be getting in your peak weeks, you should be getting 20,000 plus feet of climbing a week, maybe even 30,000. So that's a lot. That's a lot of hill days, but you need to have a transition time. So right now is the transition time, March, April, coming into May. Is going to be a good time to be like, say, your long runs hilly, maybe two other hilly workouts a week. So maybe three hilly workouts that have easy flat days in between. So you're not overdoing it on your calves and giving your body a time to adapt to that big stimulus of extrovert. So then when you do, introduce another day or even a fifth day of hills, as you get into May and June, that you can handle that and your body will not have as much to adapt to as far as like, tight calves. I would definitely work on, make sure that your calves and your hips are you're really foam rolling and keeping those things mobile, working on knees over toes move. If anybody knows that ATG split squat, you should be working on that move so you have good dorsiflexion of your ankle because you're going to be flexing a lot on the climbs. And it can really like mess with Achilles and calves and get them really tight when you start doing a bunch of vert. So don't do it just cold turkey. So ease into it
Good,
over this next 4 months.
good. So jumping a little bit from the vert, Hannah, do you have a number of miles, like peak training week in terms of miles that people should be looking at if they're training for Hard Rock, do you think?
So I would say this is where I transition straight to time on feet for me,
Okay,
because a mile in Silverton could take you forever. And so this is where I would like to put together more like, as Jeff said, like building up your vert, but then looking at your total volume, because obviously everybody has a different pace and how they're moving. And so, yeah, 3 mile, like I said, 10 miles out there could take you 3 hours or something versus 10 miles flat. And so that's where I would say I would look at overall volume. And then this is a very hard question as a coach because everybody is different. And I know that's like the classic it depends situation, but we also
yeah,
don't want you in your training to be putting in 12-hour runs every single weekend because you're just going to be fatigued, fatigued, fatigued. So I think this is where you have to balance like how much vert. And I think with Jeff talking about the overall vert training, you can also buffer that a little bit more where you put bigger days, if you wanted, let's say, 10,000 feet on the weekend. It's like, let's say you did 6 on Saturday and then 4 on Sunday or something like that, where you can kind of push it a little bit in that direction because not everybody can obviously be running tons and tons of hours every day. But that's where I would say this is the time, like Jeff said, building up your volume, and spending more time. And so yeah, it's hard. I don't have a great number because I also don't want to put that number in people's heads. So they're like, oh, if I don't run 100 miles, I'm not going to be able to do hard rock. That's the last thing. But I think being able to trust your body and slowly building these things up is going to be the key thing for you. And so when we think about vert, like I said with Jeff, it's like we could have probably in the last couple of months been around like that, 5 to 8 per week. Now maybe you're in more of that 10 to 12 per week, and then getting the next couple of months. Now we're looking towards 12 to 15,000 or above feet per week. And I think then that you can look at your volume from there.
okay, great,
And
great.
can I add something? I would
Of
say
course.
I had some really good hard rocks where I only had like 15,000
Hmm.
feet of climbing a week in my peak. So
Hmm.
you don't have to be pushing the big numbers like I'm talking about, like 20 to 30,000. But I do think you do need it mixed in, even if it's only 3 days a week. If you can't get to vert or it's harder to get there, or if you just have to mainly, treadmill midweek and one session and then do big weekend ones. But I agree that, you can't put a number around it because there's too much variability in where people are coming from and their abilities and their years in the sport. So, um, yeah, I agree with Hannah. It depends.
It depends. It definitely depends. Um, Anna, this might be an it depends question as well. The only thing I know for sure, so this is a question about tapering. I know for sure that it's too soon to start tapering now. So, but when for Hard Rock, when would you say someone should start their taper, or should they have a traditional taper for Hard Rock? I've heard sometimes people think Hard Rock's a little bit different.
It depends. Um, yeah, tapers are tricky because one of the biggest things I think that gets us in taper is our headspace. All of a sudden, we've never run in our life, our legs hurt, we're injured, we feel fat. Everything happens in taper week. You're like, so having running to keep doing during taper is really important, mostly for the mind. Um, and this is one of those big it depends ones. Some people need less time to taper. Some people need more time to taper. And it would depend on your loading beforehand. So some people load it up and then take 2 weeks of a slow decrease. Some people load it up until the week before because mentally that's better for them and then do a big decrease. It's really important to whatever you do, and this is where you're going to have to write your own chapter book and go figure it out on your own before a race. It might be a B race that you can turn up to and try a different taper than you're used to, or do the taper that you're planning to do before Hard Rock, and figure out what works for you. One of the biggest things that trips us up sometimes is that we taper so hard that our legs actually do forget how to run uphill or run downhill. So it is important to keep some of that in, especially the week before, a sharp sharpening session where you do a few little uphill repeats. You do run down 20 or 30 minutes, not fast, but at a tempo so that your quads remember what they're doing. But that's a definite huge, it depends on who you are and what you're doing. Also, depending if you're coming to altitude, then your focus is going to be on acclimatizing, getting your stomach ready for altitude over really what you're doing in training.
Yeah, yeah. Hannah, so we've heard a lot about the strength training for the legs, and we've heard about vert and all of this. Should we be doing anything for our upper body? When I started doing hard rock, my first hard rock was 2005. Very few people used poles back then. I certainly didn't back then. Now, I very rarely see a hard rocker that doesn't use poles. It seems like everybody is using them. Should I be? Should the people that are doing hard rock, should people be doing upper body strengthening with that in mind? And if so, what should they be doing?
Yeah, the great thing is if you are able to use poles consistently, that will help for sure. But if you're not able to, then I would say adding in big things, if you have access even to like a ski erg, is a good option for you to start with training through. It's a slightly different mechanic, but you can use that to start to train. Otherwise, having a lot more time spent with like standing tricep extensions, or even like lat pull downs, unilateral lat pull downs with a cable, things of that nature, where you're kind of coming from, especially with these huge, huge uphills where your arms are really far up, you have to be able to go through that full range of motion, pulling through. And so those would be like my, again, biggest bang for the buck would be like ski erg if you can, but then standing tricep extensions or unilateral cable lat pull downs, and even keeping arms straight. You can do those. Those would be kind of the big things that I would add, especially if you can't do a lot of work with your pulls. But right now, this is the great time for you to add that in.
Okay. Jeff, do you do anything upper body strength wise?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Hannah said, I'd add to that rows, like bent rows, things like that, cable rows. I think those can be very beneficial. I think you can even do one of my favorites is the lay on a bench and do alternating bench press, but doing like leg extensions. So you're doing like dead bugs type of movements with your legs, but then you're doing your upper body opposite. So you're like working on core as well. I think that's another one that's really fun. And you can do it in different grips. So it's like you can do it like you're holding your poles like this. I would also give a tip on poles that you don't want to overreach. You want to think about planting. One of the best things in Nordic skiing coaching that they give you as a tip is to imagine when you pole to that you were going to crunch over a split rail fence, meaning you're going to put your hands on the top, you're going to crunch over the top of the top post. So that's what you're right. You want to stay in tight, so you're using triceps, back, lats, because when you get really high, meaning reaching above your head, then you're really isolating it to your mid back. And those are little tiny muscles and they'll get way overworked. So you want to plant down tight and think about tricep presses. Like Hannah was saying, doing tricep presses, you should really be crunching and tricep pressing a lot and planting and thinking about planting at the base of steps and using the poles as rails. So imagine them as rails on stairs. So you're planting at the base of the steps, not above the step above you, but the step you're on, and then you follow through. And make sure you follow through. You see people like this a lot with poles, and I know they don't know how to use them when they're up here in front of them. They should be coming through. So always tricepping and crunching as you follow through.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So I've got one last question, and I'll go through the same way that I did at the beginning. I'll start with Jeff, and then Hannah and Anna. So right now, each of these coaches, you are now talking to someone here that you are coaching. There's someone here listening to this. You're coaching this person. This person is about to do their first hard rock. So, what is that one thing that you need to tell them to prepare for hard rock? And I don't know if you're talking to them now, 4 weeks from now, or if this is the last thing you say to them before they head out and line up. But Jeff, what's that thing you're going to tell your athlete?
Respect the course and don't go out too hard. This one is the one course that will beat you down. It's so big. It is huge and it's high and there, you can't discount the altitude factor in this, meaning every time you go way high over something and come back down, your O2 sat level gets pushed down a little bit. And the next time you do it, it gets pushed down a little more and it gets pushed down a little more. And by the time you hit halfway or 600K in, you only have one gear on the climbs left. And so you need to save it and don't go too hard early. It's so hard to go way too hard or just a little too hard in this race. And I would say respect the distance and respect the course.
Thank you. Thank you. Hannah, what's that thing you're going to tell your athlete before they line up?
Yeah, I would say I'll agree with Jeff, but to say something different is I would say trust the process, trust the journey. So and this is kind of back to the visualization that I talked about, is like we've been spending these months together, and hold confidence in what you've been doing and how we've been prepping. And then on race day, we'll have all of these examples of all the hard things that you've done, and that there's going to be moments where it's really, really hard, but trust that all of your training has gotten you ready. So
Fantastic. Anna, what's that piece of advice you're giving your athlete?
I think the biggest thing for myself personally is always to go in with a whole bunch of gratitude, because we have the opportunity to do this. We've chosen to do this. We get to go and do this. So, it's very easy for us to go, oh, I'm terrible. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is awful. I'm never doing this ever again. But we got to do this. We are out there doing it. So I think giving those moments of like darkness, giving them grace and giving them gratitude and going, actually, this is not that bad. I get to be out here and eat candy all day and be in the mountains. It might hurt, but it's not the end of the world. Let's keep going. Let's just carry on. This is what I want to do. And I think thinking of, like Hannah and Jeff both said, thinking of all that time that you've spent training, all that the compromises you've made to be there, that everyone else in your family and world has made for you to be there, and taking that all into your race and saying, okay, I'm so grateful for being here that I get to do this.
Fantastic advice from all three of these amazing coaches. The one thing that I'm going to tell someone who is lining up, getting ready to do Hard Rock is you belong here. If you qualified for Hard Rock, you got into Hard Rock, you belong here. It's really easy for us to have that imposter syndrome and to feel like I'm not worthy of this. You are worthy. You do belong here. And if you're doing Hard Rock, then I'm looking forward to seeing you all in Silverton. Silverton, Colorado is where Hard Rockers belong in the summer. Thank you for being a part of this panel tonight. And thank you for joining us today. If you have any other questions, you can find Jeff Browning, you can find Hannah Allgood, you can find Anna Frost on all the socials. Reach out to them. They might even coach you if you ask really, really nice. Take care, everyone, and have a great night.
Giddy up.
Thank you.
Thank you.